Have you ever noticed that, across the full width and breadth of Western fiction, the most common dichotomy of hero and villainous archetypes is the warrior and wizard, respectively? By this, I mean that the most common heroic archetype is that of the straightforward warrior, the man who faces the enemy head-on, meets and ultimately matches them in an honest tournament and overcomes them by virtue of his superior strength, usually granted by his affiliation with and symbolic of his favor from the divine powers, represented as good in whatever era his story comes from. From Arthur to Heracles, Lancelot to Sinbad, from Thor to Gilgamesh, from Conan to Davy Crockett. You'll notice the emphasis on personal combat in all of these characters, even the ones who don't necessarily wield a sword, and even if they have armies or minions or magics at their disposal. Even non-Western entities like Sun Wukong and Quetzalcoatl were held as icons of great kings and warriors. Meanwhile, the dastardly villainous archetype is the scheming, treacherous, conniving backstabber who very rarely engages in direct, fair combat with the hero. Think of Sauron, Baba Yaga, Koschei the Deathless, Morgana Le Fay, Jafar, Voldemort, Palpatine, Maleficent, Jabba the Hutt, or pretty much any corporate executive or politician character you've ever seen or read about. Genuine question. Can you think of a single instance anywhere in fiction, ancient or modern, where a merchant, mogul, bureaucrat, or manager was the good guy? Now, why do you suppose that is? Also, have you noticed that it's far more common for a villain, or at least for an antagonist, to possess some form of otherworldly powers than it is for the hero? The emphasis on meritocratic victory being synonymous with divine or natural or karmic righteousness seems endemic to our fantasy stories regardless of time, place, culture, or religion. Now, let's consider why would a magic user be archetypically classified as a villain? Or more accurately, why would it feel natural to any human audience to root for the sword-swinging soldier over the spell-slinging scholar? Well, the first and most obvious answer you'll likely have come up with in your head upon reading the title is that pretty much every story and trope we're familiar with today has been filtered down through a Christian cultural lens, whose predominant tableau is that anything non-Christian is branded evil as a matter of course. But if you've been paying attention to the examples I've been putting up on screen, you'll note that many of them are from pre-Christian, post-Christian, or even what you might consider to be some strongly anti-Christian sources. So what's the alternative explanation? Well, it's known that all social primates have an ingrained sense of fairness, by which I mean they possess an inborn sense of primal capitalism, which I suppose doesn't actually clear things up. So let me explain it this way.
That is the true lesson of strength, to turn away from strength that is not your own.
And therein lies your solution to the problem of equitable division. In a word, meritocracy. From each according to his ability, to each according to his contribution. A party member who contributed the most to the hunt, either doing a preponderance of the work or taking a preponderance of the risks, must then be correspondingly rewarded because, as I've said elsewhere, the benefits of social participation must be greater than those of striking out alone, otherwise nobody competent would ever enter into the social contract in the first place. Now, what does any of this have to do with dark sorcerers or evil emperors? Quite simply, it is because this is what pretty much all warrior cultures have done since time immemorial. In exchange for prowess, bravery, and cunning shown on the battlefield, warriors would receive praise and honor, which is just another word for prestige, within their tribe, often as a direct result earning the right to marry or to own land, or else earning it too as a spoil of conquest. Meanwhile, the malefic king or tyrannical mage takes not by right of his individual merit, but by manipulation of worldly systems, be they magical, social, economic, or political. But it goes even further than that. Consider the differences between a morally good and a morally evil wizard. For example, what separates Gandalf from Sauron? Despite being on the same cosmological tier, if not the same power level, the Grey Wizard is only ever to rely on himself and his native abilities, whether that be his magic powers, his sword skills, his charisma for gaining allies, or his worldly wisdom garnered as a result of being nearly as old as the world itself. Meanwhile, Sauron most frequently hides within his black fortresses and lets his hordes of minions and monsters do the bulk of the actual fighting and dying for him. And even on those occasions where he does get his own hands dirty, he conceals himself behind masks and illusions and tricks, similar to how the trickster gods and demons of pagan and Abrahamic legend were said to sow their mischief through extra-meritocratic means. We can even take this another step deeper, taking a look at the dichotomy between the noble lion or steed and the treacherous snake or rat, the confrontational warrior and the sneaky poisonous predator. There's a reason why being associated with the former is almost universally considered to be a compliment, where the latter is almost always an insult. Bringing this all back around to the comparatively narrow corridor of the video's title, The reason why the heroic warrior versus the treacherous wizard dynamic strikes us humans as being naturally right is because the former engages in a formal, meritocratic contest of strength, while the latter cheats or relies on powers that aren't their own to make up for what they lack in intrinsic quality, skill, or strength. Of course, this leads me back to the dilemma I laid out in this chart, the idealist versus the pragmatist. Do you play the game of life in the way that actually gets you the results you want, or do you play by the rules of some abstract moral order? As you can no doubt figure, society only works if we make both of these playstyles one and the same. Otherwise, the laws of game theory will just kick in and people will abandon the social order in favor of not getting taken advantage of by the people who just care about winning the game. So, what do you think? Do you align more with the wizard or the warrior? Leave your thoughts below. And of course, don't forget to leave us a like and subscribe while you're down there. Come visit me on other social media and my alternate channels. Toss me a coin over on Amazon, Patreon, or the Lupus Animus merch store. All links will be where you'd expect. And with all that said, until next time, my friends, as always, stay safe, stay sane, and always remember, the only stupid ideas are the ones that don't work. Peace be upon you.